So let's move ahead to the next question in object-oriented programming questions and answers video series. What is the use of shadowing keyword in C#? Now, the concept of shadowing is not exactly object-oriented programming principle, I will say, but because this keyword is very much connected with classes and objects, it's a right candidate to be discussed in this section. So what we'll do is, before we even talk about what is the use of shadowing, let's first talk about what exactly is shadowing. So let's go ahead and create a simple C# project, a simple console application, and first let's understand the concept of shadowing, and then we will see that basically what's the use of shadowing. So let's create a simple console application, and let me give a name to this console application as console shadowing. Right. Now in this console application, let's go ahead and create a simple class, let's say class 1. And in this class 1 we'll just declare a simple variable called as I. Very simple. So we have a very simple class here called as class 1, and which has a very simple public variable called as I. Now let's say we have one more class here called as class 2, and this class 2 actually inherits from class 1. Now this class 2, let's say for good reasons or bad reasons, has a method called as I. So in other words, the parent class has a variable called as I, and the class 2 has a method called as I. So let's create a method with the name I. Now let's go ahead and compile this project, because many of our developer friends would be thinking that basically the class 1 has a variable I, while the class 2 has a method I. Will it compile or not? So you can see that the build has succeeded. Now what we'll do is, let's go ahead and create the object of both of these classes, that is class 1 and class 2. So class 1 is obj1 equal to new class 1, and let's create the object of class 2 as well. So class 2 is obj2 equal to new class 2. Right. Let's build this. Now when you say obj1 dot I, you can see that it's a variable, right? Why? Because definitely you have defined a variable, so it's a variable. So I'll just say 1 2 3. So this variable I, this obj1, in obj1 the I is actually a simple variable, right? Now if I do obj2 dot I, you can see that the I is a method, right? And I don't see that variable I over here, I just see the method here. So in other words, when I actually use the parent, the I is a variable. When I use the child, the I has been converted to a method. This is termed as shadowing. In shadowing, the parent class element is completely replaced by the child class. In other words, for example, you can see that this integer I has been changed to a method I. The data type has been just replaced by a simple method. So shadowing means basically the parent element is completely replaced by child element in terms of data type, in terms of functionality, etc. When I say functionality, in terms of the variable becoming the method or function or property or whatever it is, right? Now the next question you will ask is basically what's the use of shadowing, because definitely when the complete element type is going to be replaced, this is going to cause a lot of confusion in the project. For example, you just saw, right, the variable I has been converted to a method, right? So definitely this is not a good practice. So if shadowing is going to confuse people, if shadowing is going to bring in bad coding practices, the next question arises is, why do we need shadowing then? Now in order to understand shadowing much better, let's go and delete this theoretical classes, class 1 and class 2, and let's create some practical class, some more practical classes. Okay, so let's create a class called as sales, and let's say that this sales class has a invoice number property which is numeric. So I'll say public int invoice number, set and get, and let's build this. Everything looks fine. Now let's say this sales class is used in a lot of places. It's your rockstar class. Okay, it's your famous class which is used in a lot of places, and it's working perfectly well currently. Now let's assume you get a new request, a new requirement. The requirement says that the invoice number property of the sales class should also accept alphanumeric values. Now you really can't go and change your invoice number property to string or something over here, because if you change this data type, then your current client who are consuming this class will not be happy about it. So what do we do for this? And also adding to the same, you can't use overriding. Overriding only changes the implementation. It doesn't change the data type. Currently what your demand is that basically you want to change the property data type, and that's where exactly you will need shadowing. So what you'll do is basically you will create a new class called as sales, let's say version 2, who inherits from the sales class. And in this class you will now go and you will replace this invoice number property with object. So now it's it can take strings, it can take integers, it can take anything what you wish. So now if I go and create the object of sales, obj1, you will see that this obj1 invoice number property is integer. Very important. And if you see obj2, sales version 2, obj2, if you see this new version what you have prepared, the invoice number can take integers, it can take strings, it can take whatever you wish. Why? Because the property is an object now. So in simple words, what you've done is your old clients who have been using this invoice number as an integer property can keep using the integer property. So invoice number 1, 2, 3. So the old clients can happily use your sales class, while the new clients who have raised the demand that they want a flexible invoice number can now go and use the second version. So you can see that over here this obj1 is taking a numeric value, while the obj2 is taking any value over here, string or any other data type. Why? Because this invoice number is the invoice number property is an object. You can see that there's a red error sign here. That's because of this new keyword. So now what we have achieved is the old customers or the old UIs who are consuming this sales class can happily keep using it, while the new clients get their requirement fulfilled where the invoice number is an object. So you have kept your vocabulary same and you have changed the data type of the property. Now right from the start of the video we had overlooked this warning, right? Now what does this warning says? This warning says that use the new keyword if hiding was intended. In other words, the compiler is saying that please clear your intentions. If you really want to go and override this, can you please use the new keyword and clear your intentions? So I'll say yes, I want to basically go and the new keyword comes first. So what this says is that, let me go and recompile this. So you can see that the warning has gone off. So what this says now is that basically the invoice number, which is an integer, right, will be replaced by a complete new property. The names are same, but it will have a new data type. Probably it can have a new functionality. In other words, this invoice number can become a function if you wish. So this new keyword actually says to the compiler that yes, I know what I'm doing as a developer, and my intention is to go and replace this invoice number property, which is an integer, with the invoice number property which will take objects. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Now before I end this video, I want to make one important difference clear between shadowing and overriding. Shadowing replaces the current element of the parent, while overriding only replaces the implementation. It doesn't replace the data type. It doesn't replace, like for example, you have a variable, it doesn't convert it to a method. So if there is a method, it will use that method and only change the implementation. So overriding only changes the implementation, while shadowing actually replaces the complete element of the parent class. Thank you very much.